with the news of Nasrallah's elimination and Israel's many other very successful, very impressive operations in Lebanon over the past couple of weeks, we kind of, uh, some things kind of fall between the cracks. We don't get to them certainly on this channel, and maybe you don't get to it much in the news. One of which is, Hezbollah is still firing as much as they can or as much as they currently want to at Israel from Lebanon, and Israel again is responding properly. But there have also been a few rockets from Yemen fired by the Houthis. Uh, they haven't been successful, and also they've been against Israel. So maybe it's not a surprise that we don't hear about them in the news, but they were heard of in Israel and felt there, or at least the threat is very much felt. So Israel finally has operated in Yemen. This is the second time. And we talk about how Israel isn't doing enough in Gaza and wasn't doing enough in Lebanon, but was doing little strikes here and there, is now doing a lot more. With Yemen, that's far. That's very far. It's further than Iran. When they want to do something there, it has to be spectacular, at least somewhat spectacular, at least visually. It's very nice to see what goes on there. It's kind of the case when you bomb oil. It's gonna be fire. So yeah, Israel today reminded the Houthis that the distance, if they can cross that distance, so can Israel. And yeah, this is another wonderful development. I'm really we've been talking about how Israel has been getting better since early June. There seems to have been some sort of shift there that we don't see maybe on a daily basis other than the past couple of weeks, but we saw with the rescue of the 4 hostages where Israel really went in guns a-blazing, not caring who's gonna die on the way as long as the hostages are rescued, which should be the policy generally, defending your citizens and not caring who dies on the enemy's side. Of course, that wasn't expanded to the entire war in Gaza with Hamas and the war that should be in the West Bank. But that happened, and then when in the elimination of Mohammed Deif, again, not that much concern was given to possible civilian casualties in that attack. Then there was the elimination of Fuad Shukr in Lebanon, where in Beirut, where he thought he was safe. The elimination of Ismail Hania in Tehran, where he definitely thought he was safe. So we've been seeing more and more of these more serious, more bold operations by Israel. But I saw a headline today, and I'm thinking maybe it was The Economist. I don't remember where it was because I didn't see it on the website. Somebody shared it that this is Israel's greatest victory since the Six-Day War in 1967. I think that's an exaggeration. It's also an exaggeration to call it victory at this point, but I do think these are the steps that one would take when victory is the goal, much more than what we've seen in Gaza so far. Yeah, Marco, your thoughts on what we've seen in Yemen and what we've seen from Israel generally in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see the response that Israel finally is putting all its mighty military might behind responding to the people who have been attacking them for the last year. The bittersweet side of things is that this is exactly how Gaza should have rolled out in the first place. What kind of behavior Israel should have taken with Gaza. And I realize that Gaza perhaps is a bit harder because the intel perhaps is less forthcoming. You have people on the side of Israel in Lebanon, which probably provide some sort of intelligence. So perhaps hitting Gaza with this kind of precision would have been harder. But nonetheless, this is a kind of as you say, blazing guns, going in, do what you need to do, get on with it. By now, we would have probably done and dusted. But Israel, unfortunately, chose to prioritize the people of Hamas, and therefore, we are in the situation where we are now. However, they are now hitting Hezbollah on the head. They are being incredibly proactive, and even with the Houthis. Finally, somebody is doing something about the Houthis. The Houthis have been a presence for the last year, since October 7. Of course, they are funded by Iran, and because they are a bunch of camel herders, really, they're not civilized at all in that sense. Their economy is based on imports mainly, which they pay presumably with oil money. But the point is that they're actually throwing at Israel ballistic missiles. I mean, we're talking advanced technology here, which is used to attack Israel from the other side of the Arabian Peninsula. And the scandal strike that Israel hit, it's not a coincidence that they ended up hitting a port, by the way, on the Yemeni coast, on the Red Sea, which is way past the strait with Africa, which goes to show that those ports is where the military equipment from Iran comes in, and those are the things that need to be disabled in order to stop the Houthis doing what they've been doing for the last year. I mean, we're talking killing sailors, destroying ships. They've been doing lots of damage, and the West was been doing rolling over. We did a kind of pathetic operation, I think, in January, and that was it. They shouldn't be even a memory by now, the Houthis. But that's where we are, because that's how we fight nowadays.
Yeah, there was that UK, US-led effort in January. I think they hit about 13 positions, I think, within Yemen, but it was pretty limited. But it's nice to see that success inspires further success, and that's what you've seen over the past a week and 10 days, isn't it? The taste for actually seeing justice served in this way inspires people to actually tack all of the areas where it needs to be enforced. And of course, you've got this so-called axis of resistance, for which resistance means terrorist. In this phrase, the three H's: that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and of course, a couple of Shiite gangs in Iraq and Syria in with it as well. And hopefully they're next. And I think this who is next element to it is an important one, because that is the paranoia and terror that you want in the eyes and minds, such as they exist, of these terrorists wherever they are across this axis, knowing that they could be next, regardless of what's in their pocket or what's coming down at them from the heavens above in the form of a ballistic missile. So that's particularly good to see. In this particular case, this explosion at the Hodeidah port, which is, I think, the fourth largest city I read in Yemen, and it's been under Houthi control since 2021. I think one of the things that's important to remember is there are two competing governments within Yemen, and the Houthis have got control of this. And of course, that's why they've been able to disrupt so much of the maritime shipping going through that strait, with all of its knock-on effect to trade and people all over the world. So this is a big step forward, and it's spreading the wrath of Israel justifiably to the sources where it should have been striking earlier than this. But I'm very glad to see it happen now.
Yeah, the two competing governments. I hadn't thought about that. No wonder libertarians support Israel's enemies. By the way, as a wrestling fan growing up, watching wrestling in the 90s, I was never a fan of Triple H, but I do prefer him to the Middle Eastern version of Triple H. Daniel.
So, yeah, Israel has struck, military infrastructure in Ras Issa and Hodeidah, as well as power station and ports for importing oil. Again, this was great to see. Something that I love that Israel has been doing for a bit now, and I think it's I've talked about this, I'm trying to remember when, some time ago, that Israel should basically just do as many things right after another as quickly as possible, so the people who normally criticize Israel don't have time. Before before they give their condolences for the terrorists and criticism of Israel. Israel is already doing another thing, and it quickly falls through the news. And it is doing this a little bit now. It's day after another. Hezbollah is not even fast enough with replacing their leader before that leader who just got in is assassinated. It sort of reminds me of one skit where it was a skit about a game, Crusader Kings, which is sort of like a Game of Thrones kinda, and the king or the person who got the crown was killed like right after each other. So it was quickly like just going around. Every person who basically got the crown immediately got killed right after it. And it's sort of similar here. Like as soon as you, at some point will be like no one really wants to be a Hezbollah leader anymore. So I'm hoping to see that. Also, I always like to check IDF Twitter or X whenever something like this happens. Basically, just taking a look what is the official statement, and I have part of it that I want to read. So it said, this is IDF official X. Over the past year, the Houthis have been operating under the direction and funding of Iran and in cooperation with Iraqi militias in order to attack the state of Israel, undermine regional stability, and disrupt global freedom of navigation. The IDF is determined to continue operating at any distance near or far against all threats to the citizens of the state of Israel. And I really like that last sentence, basically saying we will fight as long as our citizens are in danger, as long as as long as there is an outside threat to our citizens, we will fight. And I especially like the calling out of Iran directly, basically saying Houthis are funded by Iran, are being propped up by Iran. And also, I think I'm trying to remember if it was specifically in this statement or a different one. But one thing that I've been seeing a lot is emphasizing the fact that Israel has struck Houthis that are like the 1,500 to 2,000, I've seen different numbers, kilometers from Israeli border. And, I don't know specifically how the shape of the earth is, that what is closer, Iran or Houthis, because, it like shapes weirdly. But I've seen many people saying, yeah, this is a big message to Iran. And every single act like this, every single act against someone who is directly funded by Iran is obviously a message to Iran. And that's also great to see. I'm really wondering where are we going. The next few weeks are going to be interesting because I imagine that Hezbollah still exists. There are still Hezbollah is still there and needs to continue getting eliminated. So I'm wondering what will go on that front. Houthis, of course, while this strike has been good, and we've seen more strikes in the past that also have been pretty good, and we talked about them. But it's not enough to completely get rid of the Houthis, as well as Gaza is still not basically. We are still not in the phase of the war in Gaza where we know what's going to happen after. Basically, from what I understand, there's almost nothing of Hamas so far, and I'm wondering why we are not hearing anything. What's basically the next phase? What's the next phase of this plan? So I'm a bit worried about that. So I think that's why. Anyone who I don't know would be like leaving for a trip now, I think would be very disappointed because now it's like the best time to talk about it. So I just wanna quickly point that.
Oh, are you referring to the fact that I'm going away in a couple of days and won't be on show?
No, are you?
Yeah. That is yeah, bad timing. Yeah, BB, if you can coordinate future operations with my travel schedule, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, with Iran, they're definitely scared, and there's that famous video of Ayatollah Khamenei in the funeral, the funeral of what's his name? Not Yassin, Hania, looking up. And look, it's a video of somebody looking up. It could have been that there was a bee going around. But yeah, it's now we hear that he's been moved to a safe space, and it's first of all, it's interesting that these people keep telling us that they love death more than we love life. Why are they so afraid of it? Why do they need a safe space? If Allah decides it's their time, what are they hiding from? But yeah, there's an added kind of value to this, to the way Israel has been striking in Lebanon, the pager attacks, then the walkie-talkies, then the fact that one by one the leaders are taken out, which means Israel knows where they are, and we've talked about how Muslim society is already paranoid. That's a part of it's part of the package. So with this, you can only imagine how terrified they are, which is wonderful news. Thank you, Bull Moose, for the super chat. Bull Moose said, you should have added the word spicy to the thumbnail today with the explosion in the picture. Yeah, yeah, not everything in Yemenite culture is bad, and the spices are certainly very good. Thank you, Best Monster. Oh, it's not a super chat, but thank you for being a YouTube member. Best Monster says, Israel reminded the Houthis that actions have consequences. Yes, actually, but I think I was going to read a different comment from you, so I'll try to find it and read it when I do. Oh, a lot of people thought that Israel would never get Nasrallah. Yeah, because he's been there for so long, and there was always talks about how you never know where he is. He must be living in a bunker. Like he wasn't living his best life. He was hiding. He was hiding until he was finally found. And there's also the fact that Israel doesn't have a history, certainly a recent history, of doing such bold operations. In the Second Intifada, Israel had surrounded the Muqata, where Yasser Arafat was, with tanks, and he was basically under siege there. And, you'd see headlines how Israel is being terrible to Arafat, but he deserved to die. And he wasn't killed. And I remember at the time talking to people, and they said, yeah, you can't kill Arafat. What if somebody worse comes along? And I'm like, what kind of logic is that? That you're not going to kill the person who's killing you because somebody else might try to kill you. Well, you kill them too, and Israel has been doing that these past couple of weeks. They took out not just Nasrallah, but as we keep mentioning, his entire leadership. They really don't know. I don't know what you do. Like when, the entire C-suite and then the middle management, everybody's taken out. And by the way, it's not that unusual in Arab culture for the leadership contention competition now to be an armed struggle. Like that's another beautiful thing here. It could be that there will be it certainly might be that there will be civil war in Lebanon, and I think we might talk about that tomorrow. But there could be civil war within Hezbollah. I mean, it could be that there are different factions. So Israel has been doing really amazing stuff here. Davy Boy says, when will the Sinwar brothers be found? The Sinwar brothers are probably found oil at this point, with how far deep they're digging their next tunnel that they're going to live in. I mean, again, this is it's not just Hezbollah that is in disarray over what Israel is finally doing. It's any and all of Israel's enemies. And by the way, I'm sure it's Iran, because Iran's best army for fighting Israel is Hezbollah, until that moment that Iran finally wants to, wants its final act of eliminating Israel, which I'm guessing wouldn't happen before they have nukes. Up until then, they are fighting Israel through Hezbollah. Any serious damage that can be done, that's how it's done. That's now removed. So yeah, it's tough for the bad guys. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Corbyn loves the Houthis. Absolutely. He's having a tough couple of weeks. And Billy says in the chat, breaking news on the BBC, Allah is asking for more virgins to convert as he's run out of them rapidly. Yeah, they really do need a ceasefire now, at least temporary one. All right, there's more to say, and we will keep saying it. Marco.
Yeah, Damascus, Tehran, Beirut is not a safe time for terrorists. And that's exactly the kind of message you should send to these kind of people, because they only understand violence and they only understand when they're under threat. So that's why, the Iranian rat, Khamenei, went and he must be bricking himself now. No wonder he's looking up all the time. Probably can't do it right now. It must be in such a deep hole right now, hiding away like a little girl. But he probably senses that the next one might be his. And of course, there was an Easter egg in the explosion that took out Nasrallah. It was, funny enough, a deputy commander of the Islamic Republic of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. So you could wonder, hang on, what's an Iranian doing in the HQ bunker with Nasrallah? Well, that goes to show that they are a face of the same coin, aren't they? They are clearly supplied and in constant contact with the mother base in Iran, which decides which kind of action to take in order to destabilize the area and trying to destroy Israel in the process. And of course, this is a unique set of actions that Israel has taken. But at the same time, it's also a unique set of political landscape that we presented at the moment. We've got a lame duck president in the United States, and we have a brand new president in Iran who's been trying to show himself as the moderate guy, who's signaled a number of times, "I'm open to a deal. Let's do another deal like Obama did. Let me continue building nuclear weapons. And look at me, I'm so nice. I even allow women to live," that kind of stuff. So this particular point, the actions, the very strong action that Israel are taking right now, are probably capped by the US election, I would think. Israel must know by now that a Democrat victory will be the end of every serious attempt to defend itself from these people. Therefore, if they don't they don't seize the opportunity right now, they might never see such a window in their favor like this. And frankly, if they push at this kind of pace, they might well get away with sorting out quite a lot of their problems.
And in the strike which hit Nasrallah, it seems like it's been released as about 20 senior top brass within Hezbollah that also were taken out at the same time. And I know that and today, of course, or in recent hours, they've killed Nabil ARCUK, who was mooted as his successor. I may have mangled his name there, but he's been mangled anyway now, so it hardly matters. So his successor is, mooted as a successor is now dead. He was part of the preventative security unit, obviously not anymore. And he was also, the military commander in South Lebanon during the 2006 war. And one of the interesting little anecdotes I read about him was he was the guy who normally does the eulogies for the rest of them when they die. So even that job's up for grabs now. Yeah. And of course, it's always good to see that the Houthis are no longer dancing.
Daniel.
Yes, one thing I wanted to mention, I'm really running out of people to talk about. Whenever there are, whenever we talk about these organizations, I always have a person in mind, basically, sort of like standing for the organization itself. And when it comes to the Houthis, it wasn't much, but there was always the speaker for the Houthis. He's dead now, so again, I don't even have him. So I don't even bother learning the names because they might get eliminated anyway. But I was just quickly looking up because we've talked about Sinwar being possibly dead. I've seen reports that apparently he has been move to a more secure location, or basically that he's been moving around the Gaza because of the Nasrallah's because of the fact that Nasrallah died. So I definitely want to see. I like to see all of this, but I'd like to specify I want to see more in Gaza. I was also checking out the what's the full name? The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, which is basically the place to go when you want to see the numbers, which of course they just take from the Gaza Health Ministry. But it looks like in 1 week, only about like 150 people died in Gaza, which seems like incredibly little. So I wonder if that means, and of course, it's hard to even trust the numbers. But I'm wondering if, yeah, that's my biggest question, possibly right now. I hope Israel is really finalizing the operation in Gaza, and we'll see something more. I actually also wanted to comment on the earlier statement. Someone in the chat said that this has been the greatest victory since the 6 Days War. And I was thinking about it, and while the using victory is again not yet appropriate, but it might be depending on the next course of actions from Israel. But it has, if you think about it, it has been really the greatest act that Israel has done basically since the 6 Day Wars. But it doesn't talk much about this action today. It talks much about the actions that we've seen, respectively, haven't seen in the past, because Hezbollah has been a problem for decades, and I think that's why this operation has been so successful. Israel has been getting ready for war against Hezbollah. Yeah, pretty much since the last war, it has been getting ready. Not in the same way that it should have been ready for Gaza. It wasn't ready for a ground invasion of Gaza, but it was ready for Hezbollah. That's why they knew where everybody was. That's why they had the pagers already prepared. That's why, that's why everything could have come together so well. So yeah, it's really hard to say anything, because we usually criticize Israel, and we can talk. We can.
I can
Okay.
get used to this. And by the way, this is another point I was going to make it later, but I can make it now. I was watching, I watch the news on Israeli television, and I flip between the channels, and yesterday is Saturday, and the only right-wing channel in Israel is off on Saturday for religious reasons, because it's a religious channel, and I really missed it. Like I don't like all the religious stuff they say there, but Jesus Christ, watching Israel's mainstream channels, whenever Israel does something good, immediately talk about what's going to be the response. I don't know what's going to be the response, but that would come at some point. It doesn't have to be a response. What was October 7th the response to? So the existence of Israel. That's what it's a response to. So yeah, the mainstream media in Israel is disgusting. But oddly enough, whenever there's anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiment in the media worldwide, the Israeli media criticizes it, but then does the same thing just in Hebrew. So yeah, on Channel 14, the religious right-wing channel, you see panels, everybody's smiling, everybody's having fun, like what we did yesterday when we did the celebratory episode for Nasrallah's death. We were having fun, and that is what you should be doing. Yeah, it's not the content we're used to making, but we're flexible here. We're ready. Netanyahu, if you want to keep going, we can shift the way we do things. We can get used to this kind of stuff, and we're happy to. Thank you, Bull Moose, for the super chat. Bull Moose says, South Park banker, and he's dead. I don't remember that, oddly enough, but I did see the meme quite a few times. Somebody here in the chat says, Gideon Levy says that the situation is still as bad as it was prior to the elimination of Nasrallah. And then somebody else replies, Gideon Levy is wrong. Actually, he's not. From Gideon Levy's perspective, this is a very, very bad situation. His side is losing. And his side is really, they've been hammered pretty badly these past couple of weeks. They're not in a good situation. So yeah, Gideon Levy's side is losing, and that's a good thing. Something else that's been
Before
lost
you
in the yeah.
before you move on, I wanted to quickly just comment on something quickly on the fact that what the escalation is gonna be. And for those who might know, there is this person called Nick Fuentes. He's a terrible piece of shit, although I don't think I've been watching him, or keeping track of him for a long time. And something about him, and something that is sort of with few people kind of like him, they're like really funny, and watching them being just funny is pretty good. And he's been talking about Hezbollah. He's been he basically disavowed Hezbollah for not killing enough Jews, but he was saying I think someone he also was saying that that people are saying what's going to be the escalation, and he was making fun of Hezbollah. What is going to be escalation? They're probably going to tweet, oh, Israel shouldn't have done this, and will respond and not do anything about it, because that has been sort of what we've seen. Nasrallah is not tweeting anymore, but Khomeini has been tweeting. He just announced 5 days of mourning. But that thing, like, what's gonna be, like, what's gonna be the escalation, or what's gonna be the response? Well, first of all, when you attack, you do it in the way so there's no response. And if you think there's gonna be, you attack further. Like, you would never just unless you are really adhering to the sort of altruist morality, you would never like attack in a way that like, oh, now we are afraid what's going to happen next. No, you go full in, you go as strong as you can, so there is no response. You strike first and you strike hard.
Deborah says in the chat, the only problem with Channel 14 is the Islamists always seem to attack during the Chagim, the holidays, and on Shabbat, Saturday, and Channel 14 observes the Sabbath, so they don't. Yeah, it's not the only problem, but yes, and there's a reason why they always attack on the holidays and the Sabbath, because they know that many people in Israel observe those days. They won't answer the phone. It's difficult to reach people, including people who will who are soldiers. Now, even in religious texts, there's exemptions. If somebody's coming to kill you, you can violate the rules of the Sabbath, but you have to know that that's happening. So and so there's this thing that has kind of been lost in the news, which happened, I believe, yesterday. The U.S. Says it killed 37 Islamic State and Houthi fighters in separate attacks in Syria. Lloyd Austin, does this further the goal of de-escalation when you just kill multiple terrorists like that? I wonder. Marco.
Well, in a way, you wish that United States had the moral standing of doing this kind of action after in the wake of 9/11. Imagine how many thousands of lives would have been saved if they went in and hit the people responsible for this. Not just the easy soft target of Saddam Hussein, or through a bomb in Afghanistan, but if they really went in the way that Israel is doing at the moment. Because every single terrorist, and we're not just talking the single idiots with a explosive belt on himself. We're talking the people who are actually plotting and organizing all these kind of actions. We're talking about people who, as you mentioned, have been around for the last, at least 30, 40 years. Israel is right now wiping out the generation of baby boomer terrorists, literally baby boomer, the people with the bombs. And they are still there mostly, but it would be interesting, as you mentioned, to see what the reaction within Hezbollah itself is going to be. In a way, could well be a civil war within Hezbollah, could well be that Lebanon might take advantage of the situation, the weakness of Hezbollah, and try and sideline them, or at least kick them out, or at least make them irrelevant politically. And also Iran is quite an interesting one because, of course, Papa Smurf, what's his name? Khamenei, he said that he will retaliate. He said something like, we'll have a forceful answer to the killing of the deputy commander. But on the other hand, they've been positioning themselves, as I mentioned earlier on as a new kind of attitude, trying to be more moderate. Yeah, and moderate, by moderate I mean trying to trick the West that they are more reasonable people. They're not the kind of Islamic murderers that they always are. So you find the hard line within Iran itself, which is kind of in conflict with the so-called moderates, and they're trying to decide exactly what to do. Because of course, if they respond heavily against Israel, they will be in a position that will not be able to have any deal with Kamala Harris, where she the winner. And if they don't, lots of people will be unhappy within the Islamic Republic, because they thrive on violence and destruction, so they will see this as weakness. So it's going to be interesting to see which faction wins. And of course, if they go in hard and respond on Israel, might well be that Israel will respond back this time. And this time won't be just blowing up, an outhouse somewhere in the middle of the desert. Hopefully, it's going to be a significant one, which will ideally take out most of the Revolutionary Guard commanders, and cherry on the cake, Khamenei, but already is so old, it doesn't really matter anyway. Although we take the win.
Yeah.
I just have to say, Marco, my initial reaction was to be offended when you referred to Khamenei as Papa Smurf, but then I remembered, because I watched it as a kid, then I remembered learning later that it's basically communist propaganda, and the bad guy is basically this evil Jew. So it's also anti-Semitic. So yeah, Papa Smurf is a good.
Even got red pants, isn't it? So.
I think when the dust settles and down the line, and we're able to take more of a wider angle perspective on all this, it's going to be interesting to see whether the contrast between how Israel fought the early part of this conflict and the latter part will be viewed by other countries in relation to the other bad actors that exist in the world, and whether any of those countries will draw the right lessons from how to eliminate terrorism and reduce its threat. That, of course, remains to be seen. But I mean, that's one of the hopes that you can have for this period. I think lots of the facts that it also shows out. I mean, the fact that the Iranian Guard was obviously, as we mentioned before, killed within the Hezbollah HQ, that cements the link between the two. It makes it far more than speculation. And of course, the fact that where that was located within Beirut, and the fact that it was just 53 meters from a UN school, goes to show how that's the MO, isn't it, of putting this military structure, behind this terrorist organization HQ so close to a school, to use the human shield element, same as they do in Gaza, to ensure that they use their own population as supposedly as protection. And if we're now going to make sure that isn't a successful method, and that doesn't prevent people from being hit, then that's going to change the dynamic considerably, and so it should. But of course, we've seen all the usual players out there in the world. I mean, even the Pope, of course, that other buffoon in a dress, has come out and said that the use of force must not be over the top from Israel. So of course, there's going to be countless calls on restraint, but this is the period not for restraint. This is to make sure that you do the job properly, thoroughly, and wherever is required.
Who said the use of force shouldn't be over the top?
The Pope.
Yeah.
Oh.
Another one who's not keen to meet his
his boss,
his manager.
Daniel.
Well, okay, I'm gonna since you mentioned it, I'm gonna give a short story about why I hate Pope. So one time he actually came to Slovakia, and so they closed down the street and I couldn't cross it and go get McDonald's. It really pissed me off because I couldn't like go around it and I didn't even know he was coming. So I came to the town because like everything is far away from me. So I came to the town for just that one day, and all the streets are closed and I couldn't even get McDonald's. So
Well, you should have declared Nakba.
yeah.
You got ground for that.
Also, someone in the chat said, but none of you guys look Semitic at all, which is kind of weird to me because don't you people usually just judge people by their last name? You know, you just look at that and you determine if they're Jewish or no.
Yeah,
But
somebody also called us soy boys. So first of all, why are you assuming our gender? And second of all, it's always interesting to see who is on the side of the Palestinians, because typically, it is people of the left who think this is somehow compatible with like feminism and LGBTQ plus and the woke agenda, and not the kind of people who typically use soy boy as an insult.
well,
And yeah.
you have to realize when it came to when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, alt-right races were in a really hard spot because on one side the Jews were getting killed, but on the other side Arabs could have gotten killed. So they were just so split, they just couldn't really decide. And I think they're still now they've decided Jews killing is better. So now they are basically on that side, similar to how Nick Fuentes is a big fan of anyone who basically is against Israel. So that's sort of what they've chosen.
Yeah, and Ram was replying to the point about none of us looking Semitic, saying, I think Razi is from Sweden. By the way, I saw that, and I remembered this one time when I went to like a decade ago or so, I went to a dentist here in London, and it's more than a decade ago, maybe, and he was Iranian, and he asked me, "Are you is your last name Swedish?" And I said, "No, it's Austrian," which is true, but Austrian Jewish, and I left it at that. Even though the fact that he's from Iran, he might be more pro-Israel than we are, but I didn't want to take that risk. If you think that's racist, let us know in the comments. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Corbyn tweeted 5 hours ago, "End all arms sales to Israel." So he wants Jews to perish. Yeah, I saw that tweet as well. I was looking for, if maybe in the episode that we did for the Daily Objective, if he has anything to contribute that's unique. I didn't see anything that's that unique. It's typical Corbyn stuff, but a different Jeremy that we discussed here did have some stuff to say. Should we? I know this is not Yemen people who, if you don't want to accuse me of racism, you can accuse me of clickbait for saying that we're going to talk about Yemen and expanding it. But I do think it's interesting. The Yemen attack is part of Israel's boldness, and this is part of the response to Israel's boldness. This is a BBC News.
Let's go there, but I quickly just want to comment. Someone said in the chat, the war is just beginning and the US cannot continue to protect Israel indefinitely. What war? Who is alive to like fight Israel? Like Hamas has probably like one battalion left out of all of those, or I'm not sure what exactly they call their specific, but has maybe one. They have no leaders. All of their leadership got killed. There's one. Sinwar is pretty much, if you look up the Hamas most wanted cards, you have like one queen and that's it. All of the other ones are dead, and that queen is Sinwar. The card, I mean, and that's it. When it comes to Hezbollah, the leadership is completely obliterated, as well as almost all of their even sending out rockets capabilities. Houthis just got attacked. Not to mention when Houthis attacked, even international community response, because when Houthis attacked the international shipping, US even has responded. It wasn't just Israel. So unless you're saying that Iran will go to war, which I to some extent hope, so we can also get rid of them, But who is left to fight against Israel? This idea of escalation. Again, I'm asking, who? Are we going to Syria next? Is Israel just going to solve all the problems in the Middle East in just 1 year?
This is actually what I'm really hoping. I mean, again, I've been disappointed by Netanyahu for, pretty much his entire career, other than the past couple of weeks. But yeah, since it has been 12 days in a row of good stuff from Israel. I am thinking, can you keep it going for a little bit more until you do solve all the problems? Because I saw a report today that Iran is building a plutonium plant in Syria on the same spot where Syria had a nuclear weapons program that Israel got rid of in 2007. Yeah, taking out the proxies, weakening Iran's ability to strike at Israel without it being officially Iran, and with is a very, very good step towards what Netanyahu has been talking about, not since October 7th, but for his entire political career. So yeah, if he does this now, he would be, I'm not going to say I would vote for him, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't. Like, I understand. I look at the polls in Israel, and the Likud party, which Netanyahu is the leader of, keeps getting stronger. It's in part because he's actually fighting this war now. It's in large part because the Israelis see that world leaders are uniting against Israel, and that is the Israeli media, for the most part, and many protesters in Israel and Israel's opposition would rather get rid of Netanyahu than win this war, than stand up to Israel's enemies and stand up to Israel's so-called allies when they're not being real allies. So yeah, Netanyahu is doing a good job this past couple of weeks, and we will, of course, acknowledge that whenever that is the case. We will also acknowledge Jeremy Bowen whenever he does a good job. He's doing a great job in creating propaganda for the anti-Israel crowd. So this was a headline in the BBC. It says that the article was from the 27th of September, so 2 days ago, updated yesterday. The title is West Left Powerless as Israel Claims Its Biggest Victory Yet Against Hezbollah. The article continues, it is time to stop talking about the Middle East being on the brink of a much more serious war. After the devastating Israeli attack on Lebanon, which killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, it feels as if they're tumbling over it. I'll leave it at that. This is not gonna, we have 10 minutes left, so this is not gonna be one of those episodes where you go through the whole article. But it's again interesting to see. This is the person who decides how the BBC reports on stuff from the world, and he knows the facts. He knows that that Lebanon via Hezbollah has been attacking Israel daily. Has fired more than 8,000 rockets over the past year at Israel, and he's talking like Israel's so-called allies about Israel defending itself being escalation. Yeah, and we the people of this country are paying his salary, even if we don't pay what's it called, TV tax, TV license tax. Thank you all for the super chat. Yeah.
Sorry, just call it a tax, please.
Yeah, it is a tax. Thank you all for the super chat. Marco.
Yeah, I think the reaction of the West via the media has been quite telling. And of course, people like Jeremy Bowen know the truth, but they ignore it. They don't care. They're on the side of the Islamic monsters. They're on the side of terrorism against the very system they created, against the system, the Western society that allows him to have a voice. But they don't care. They are all out for destruction of every single civilized remains of civilization, and certainly for the destruction of Israel. They haven't got anything good to say for Israel, and certainly they much rather see Israel taken over by some sort of Islamic dictatorship than have it as successful and as powerful as it actually is. But but they don't like this. And for that very reason, they've been unable to praise the effort that Israel has made in the last few weeks. And even they are taken by surprise. You can actually tell by the headlines they do not know what to do with this. They haven't clearly yet received the main orders from the mothership, so to know which line to toe. But they know for sure that they cannot get themselves to say, Jesus, Israel here is really whacking those buffoons on the head, and at the same time they cannot have a consistent message, because they will just scream, "Oh my God, they're killing my friends," which is roughly what Iran should be doing, really. Yeah, this whole situation is pretty telling, and the enemies of civilization always come out. They always make themselves known, and this Jeroboam one is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much hate out there for Israel, but it's the same system that awards an Emmy to the Palestinian propaganda documentary. So is that really a surprise?
This sort of this uncertainty you can sense with organizations such as the BBC is definitely quite palpable at the moment. And because events are happening so fast, and Israel's taken the opportunity to move from one place to another, and before they've even got time to call a meeting and decide how they're going to respond, you've got various forms of response happening to it. Senior journalists like Lise Toussaint truffling around looking for families that they can report on in the same way they do within Gaza, and take look at this poor little family and their poor little children because they're currently away from their home, etc. So they're certainly trying that technique, but that kind of pales into insignificance because of its stupid myopia against the bigger picture of seeing terrorists actually wiped out in a purely surgical manner, in a way that is truly commendable, particularly when you see the buildings that surround the giant crater that now we know is where the HQ formerly was. So yeah, that's all good to see. But I think will they get a line together, a fixed line together? They don't need to, because you can read between the lines. It's very easy to see what's going on in terms of where their sympathies lie. But this is a short window, as we said earlier, concerning the upcoming US election. This is the opportunity. So let's just hope Israel keeps at it.
Yeah, and by the way, other than that giant crater, Israel has been continuing attacks in Dakhia quarter in Beirut. There were at least 5 of them today. So yeah, it hasn't stopped, and it's important, really important for Israel to keep pushing at this point, at least on the fronts that it is currently willing to fight, and hopefully expand it beyond that. Yeah, this could be a game-changing moment in history. I don't think that's an overstatement. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis have been designated terrorist organization, and Israel has pretty much managed to get rid of them just like that. And the worst part about this is as we said, the response from the West. The only response that should come is thank you. Thank you for finally getting rid of these terrorist organizations that have killed our own citizens. It's not just when it comes to Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis, it wasn't just Israelis. There were there were Americans, and I believe there were even, for example, the French kidnapped on October 7th. Houthis have been attacking international shipping, which you have to remember, that's not just your Rubik's Cube you ordered from China is going to be twice as expensive or something like that. That's when it comes to Suez, or when it comes to basically like cutting down on that transportation. Those are billions. Those are billions of dollars. Basically, cost of transportation, making things cheaper. The things will go more expensive when there is a bigger risk that you will get attacked. Also, the insurance costs for the shipping itself are going up. Everything is being more difficult. And when it comes to Houthis, also there was a bit better response from the West. but Israel is pursuing this path, and then Hezbollah, the attacks against Americans in Lebanon, and yeah, against the world itself, or the Western world. Israel is doing world a favor, and that's not why Israel is doing it. I don't think so. That's the good part, the fact that this is not some altruistic war. Oh, they're attacking the world, we have to save them. No, they are doing that to protect their own citizen, which is the only responsibility, the only responsibility they have to their own citizens, and they are doing that. And because of the way the world works, they are also helping Western civilized people all over the world, and they get nothing for it. They get no thank you for it. And as you mentioned, Razi, I think that's why Likud has been getting more popular. I've just checked the most recent polls. It doesn't seem like they've jumped that much, but the last poll was, I think, 5 to 6 days ago. So maybe the next one might be even bigger. But they are supposed to win the next election if it were to happen. So it shows that there are people who want this. There are people who want to see this response. They want to see a strong response to evil, a just response, and a just resolution to this conflict. And yeah, I'm really wondering because Middle East has been for a long time this sort of region that it always has been an issue. Whenever I look up the different, you have the Yemeni civil war, you have the Syrian civil war. Whenever I look up any civil war, it takes me a long time to just like read through and figure out who the hell is even like the closely to a good guy here, or sort of like the more reasonable option, because it's a mess. And the fact that Israel is cleaning up a lot of this mess, despite the fact that many Western nations have been in this region and could have done something about it. It's it's great to see on the Israeli part, and very disappointing to see when it comes to other Western nations. Because just quickly, because someone mentioned, I always say we, but I'm not Israeli. And I think Diego in the chat corrected him. When I say we, I mean we, the civilized world. And the other, when it comes to the savagery you mostly find in the Middle East. I identify with Israel because I identify with the civilized world.
Yeah, and as for Netanyahu, the last poll I saw the results of was a couple of days ago, and that was 25 seats. Before I stopped watching Channel 14 today, they said they'll have a poll, so I don't know if there's any update there. There is an update while we were live from Israeli politics. Gideon Sa'ar, who was a minister and then left, is back, and his party is back in the coalition, and he is, I think, probably to the right of Netanyahu on these matters. So I would say that's a positive.
Is he also going into the war cabinet? Because I think that was.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I understood. Sharren Haskel, Israel's most free market-ish member of parliament, is also in his party. Another good thing, although winning the war is the only thing that really matters now for Israel. That's a good day after the war point. Thank you, Loresetto, for the super chat. Loresetto says thanks again. Thank you, Bob with hat, for the super chat. Bob says, proud to be Israeli. Thanks for your efforts, ARCUK. Thank you. Frank, thank you for the super chat. Frank says, just love Bibi's Michael Corleone strategy here. I have not seen the Godfather movies. I'm afraid I'm not a movie person, but if any of you have any comment on that, please go ahead. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Loresetto, for the super chat. Loresetto says, and again. Thank you, Bullmoose, for the super chat. Bullmoose says, another YouTube BS block. Email me. Daniel, do we have an email from Bullmoose with the super chat?
Yeah, I posted it in the chat.
Okay. So yeah, Bullmoose says millions of Persians, Iraqis, Syrians, and Lebanese also thanked Israel I hope to meet them all, to meet all of them one day when we free them. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know, not to be the party pooper here, but I don't know how many of them are actually pro-Israel, but this is one of the things that would move them in that direction. And yeah, I absolutely think this is something that Israel, again, we're going to talk about what should happen internally in Lebanon tomorrow on the Daily Objective, but I absolutely think this is something Israel should be pushing now. Now is a very good time for Israel to continue doing this and to find out who are Israel's actual potential allies in the Middle East. Yeah, as for the West, I don't know. There are a few in the West as well, but it's a shame that not as many as you would hope. Thank you, Loresetto, for another super chat. Loresetto says, troll quotient indicates real progress. Yeah, we have more viewers, more live viewers than usual, and some of them are trolls. That's good. It means we're reaching people who might not agree with us, and some of them might troll us. Some of them might say, "Look, I don't agree with this, but this is, I haven't heard this before. It's interesting. Let me listen some more." Yeah, people can change their minds, and I think that's another possible result of Israel finally fighting its war properly. We've been hearing from about Israel's half-assed operations in Gaza, that it's genocide, that they're killing everybody. I don't know what language you're going to use now that Israel is actually fighting. The anti-Israel crowd has many problems nowadays. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Corbyn should be banned from the U.S. and Israel. I don't know. I mean, people like that, it's usually the best sunlight is the best disinfectant. Is that how the expression goes? I want people to hear the Jeremy Corbyns of the world. I just think, as if we move toward a more rational society, such people will kind of move to the sidelines, and let's hope that happens. Thank you, Buffo, the art clown, for the super chat. Buffo says Israel is the shining beacon on the hill in context to self-esteem and justice. Yes, Israel is absolutely at this moment, these past few weeks, moving in a direction that, again, I think we will all thank them. We all thank all the many super chatters today. Yeah, Israel fighting the war is also good for ARCUK's bottom line, apparently. Yeah, the trolls in the chat don't typically super chat, but they clearly value what we do enough to keep coming back. And yeah, the more funding we have, the more we can keep doing what we're doing and keep growing. So thanks again to the super chatters. Thanks to everybody who's a member. You can become a member through the website with the link in the chat and in the description. You can become a YouTube member directly on YouTube. We are back tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you tomorrow.